Man, alright. Well, I wasn't gonna do another one of these today because I wanted to get back to some Wolfenstein. But man, more and more of this nonsense keeps coming out. And it's hard not to talk about it because it's so ridiculous. Well, I guess it just came out that Concord lost about $400 million, which is super strange. Considering the game did not even look like it was worth $100 million, let alone 400. So it's super curious where that money went. But anyway, that's not what I'm trying to get at. So first point is that you know why the game failed? Well, you had a bunch of virtue signaling weirdos, as usual, tell people if you don't like it, then don't play it. Okay. So people took that advice literally, and the game failed. Second reason, people are getting exhausted with this type of behavior from game developers and weirdos online who constantly demonize people for disagreeing with their worldviews. Worldviews, by the way, which are taken from oppressed groups in order to stereotype on them, to virtue signal, to try to prove to society that they're good people, when in reality all they're doing is stereotyping trans people and stuff in order to virtue signal. It's so cringe. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. So this game lost $400 million. And what are people doing? Well, they're blaming the racist, white, bigot agenda again. Well, I hate to break it to you, but when the entire world takes one look at your game and just straight up says, no, not even gonna bother with this one, and doesn't even care enough to try it, well, the entire world isn't a racist bigot. What, there's only 61 good people in the world, which was the player base of Concord before it was getting shut down? No. You made a bad game. People took one look at it, looked at the characters, and were like, oh boy. Here we go again with this nonsense. Don't care anymore. I'm gonna go do something else. And that's exactly what everybody did. They took your advice. You don't like it, don't play it. Okay, cool. Nobody did. And now they're mad that nobody played it. It's like, at what point can you stick to a certain argument instead of bouncing around whenever it's convenient for you? It's just, a bad product's going to fail. It's just how a free market works. If people don't like what you're selling, they're not going to buy it. It has nothing to do with their political views. If anything, it has everything to do with your political views being inserted into the product and literally blown into everybody's fucking face, and they're just like, I don't have time for this, man. Fuck off. So that happened. And then I guess now you've also got Ubisoft and Sweet Baby Inc. On a tirade to attack anybody that's giving the new Shadows Creed game any criticism, because God forbid you dislike something, it's considered harassment now, and nobody's allowed to have any constructive criticism when your ideals are better than everybody else, right? You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a tyrant leader from Germany back in World War II, I think it was. Yeah, y'all literally sound like Nazis. You call everybody else Nazis when in fact you are the Nazis. You tell everybody how to live their lives, that you try to dictate social norms, and you tell anybody who speaks out about it that they are wrong, and if they do, you attack their jobs, you attack them personally, you send death threats. You are not the good people in this situation. You are in fact the fascist Nazi bullies. Because if anybody says anything against it, you don't come and have like a comeback or a counter argument. No, you go straight to the death threats. You go straight to attacking their place of work. You call HR. You come up with a bunch of bullshit in order to get them fired, and you literally just go after them and try to destroy them. Ridiculous. And that's exactly what is happening right now. Again, it's like, oh, maybe if we demonize people enough, they'll buy our product. It's so fucked up, man. Anyway,
have been done in collaboration with Ubisoft.
Ubisoft has people running defense for Assassin's Creed.
running
like
defense.
Because every piece of media that they release about Assassin's Creed is just getting like massively shit on.
Let me turn my game volume down here
Bots
really
to
quick.
defend themselves. They're using Sweet Baby Inc. Park Place reports.
Sweet Baby Inc. is back, eh? Why is it every time we hear about some ridiculous nonsense, Sweet Baby Inc. is involved? Anyway.
The New York Times to attack gamers over AC Shadows was actually a
Yeah, remember, if someone's not buying your product, if you attack them for long enough, maybe they'll buy it.
I wonder who thought this was a good idea, that how do we deal with people not liking our product? Let's attack them and maybe they'll have to like it after that.
Yeah.
What kind of a dumbass strategy is that?
They're gonna try to force us to buy their garbage. That's what they're gonna do. And people like to constantly say, well, maybe you should grow as a person or get a life. It's like, well, maybe if you actually practiced half the virtues you signal, instead of stereotyping people in order to pad your fucking ego, maybe I'd meet you halfway.
Inc. employee. It's got to be some of the worst things you could do to defend yourself as a company, using bots and using Sweet Baby Inc. Like, what are they thinking?
You know who also used tactics like this for when people disagreed with their worldviews? Nazis and other military groups that did horrible, horrible things back in history. If anybody disagrees with you, you shut them down and you destroy them. That is literally the same tactics that Sweet Baby Inc. and Ubisoft are using right now. You don't agree with us? Then we're going to tear you down and destroy your fucking life. Like, how pathetic.
In a most recent hit piece by the New York Times that appears to have been done in collaboration with Ubisoft, the outlet's Zachary Small cited a so-called Japanese consultant and translator who claimed that criticism of the game was being done by individuals in the West using translators, and that the Japanese people were not upset with how the game not only featured
Man, that's a serious cope right there. Yeah, remember guys, only Western people dislike Western worldviews. The rest of the world, totally on board with this fucked up bullshit.
against the protagonist, but
this is the
we literally watched a video yesterday where Japanese people are clowning on this bullshit. No, they don't agree with you. In fact, they think half of this shit is ridiculous and fucking hilarious.
Classic journalism spin. A lot of people need to be aware of this.
Gotta spin it, right? If you disagree...
It's a huge problem that goes over a lot of people's heads. So we're going to look at this statement here, and we're going to draw a line around it. Who claimed that the criticism of the game was being done by individuals in the West using translators.
Like, what?
And then this part right
that's
here,
a fucking
actually
reach.
just the rest of it, basically, is the part that's not true. So what usually people do, and journalists do, is they tell a story by telling you one truth and one lie. It is absolutely verifiably true that a lot of the comments that were posted in Japanese were in fact people from the West that were just using Google Translate to make the letters in Japanese. This is verifiable, it is true, and it is unequivocally stupid, number one, and also these people were not Japanese. However, to say that
everybody...
This is what happens, right? So like you say something that's true, you get people, yeah, I remember seeing that, and...
Yeah. There probably were some weirdos that were using Google Translate, but it's not everybody. Like, again, that's a stretch. A stretch at best. Like, that is some serious cope.
I shall take my leave once my strength has returned.
And yeah, again, you're gonna get weirdos on both sides who go to an extreme length to get their point across. But at the end of the day, majority of people that are, you know, not insane actually have accurate and constructive criticism of the game and the way that these people act and try to dictate social norms.
Then you tell the lie. The Japanese people are not upset about how the game not only features Yasuke as a protagonist, but
It's
also
stretching the
Yasuke
truth.
as a samurai. So, there we go.
And most sane people don't give a fuck about the fact that Yasuke is the samurai. Like, that's... How many times do people have to explain it? That's not the key point. The key point is the fact that the developers are using it and stereotyping in order to pad their egos. And they can't even come up with a decent quality game to do it. That's the issue. Nobody gives a flying fuck that the character is black, man. There are plenty of characters in games that are awesome that are black. Like, this isn't the point. This is just the way they twist it in order to make it seem like they're the good people in this. No. You're an asshole. And anybody that gives you any constructive criticism, you automatically shut it down because you act like you're better than everybody else because you use inclusivity disguised as racism and sexism to fuel whatever propaganda you're trying to shove down everybody's throat. And the worst part is, most of it is stereotypes. It's not even... Anyway.
That's exactly how it happens. And the big problem here, the reason why this keeps happening, is because the...
What people have an issue is not... like, this is just a product of what people have issues with. This is a byproduct. What people have an issue with are dealing with exhausting people like this for over the last, like, 5 to 10 years who want to act like they're on some superior cross and try to dictate social norms when they themselves have no clue what they're talking about. And they use oppressed groups in order to further that agenda, because if they didn't, they would have no argument.
The average person has, I think, less of a command of the English language now than they did 10 years ago. And I think 10 years ago, they had less of a command of the English language then than they did 10 years prior to that. The problem is that reading and literacy levels are going, and also, like, it's not even just reading and literacy, it's competency with reading. That's what really matters, right? It's not just, oh, do I know what I'm reading? It's about, can I evaluate what I'm reading? And the answer to that is no. People cannot see this, and they get manipulated easily.
Yeah.
That is depicted as a samurai.
People are very
in Japan literally made a
easily
song that
manipulated
mocks
with
AC
information.
Shadows, that in only 2 months has already gotten nearly 3 million views.
Jesus.
And of course, all over the internet, plenty of Japanese people have also criticized Ubisoft, plenty of videos, plenty of posts all over social media, etc.
And also, it's true that every single comment that's made in Japanese is not also made by a Westerner. It's, again, muddying the waters. It's disinformation.
Yeah. Misdirection.
IQ is dropping across the board from fluoride. For sure.
Because if you keep misdirecting people from the actual problems, then everybody talks about other things, and then the main issue completely gets thrown underneath the rug, and then you're back to square one. That's how these types of people do this kind of stuff. They completely talk around the actual issue, attack people, derail the entire conversation, and try to steer it in a direction that fulfills their political and worldviews, because they know what they're doing is stupid. They know what they're doing is wrong. So they have to use tactics like this in order to confuse people.
So true. You're right about everything. It's also flat.
And these bootlickers really want to try and say that it's all just Westerners using translators. They then write about Hashimoto, who, as you can see here, was listed as a freelance narrative design consultant over at Sweet Baby Inc.
So this is the person who wrote it, and then they were actually on Sweet. Yeah, what a fucking surprise.
Oh, yeah. So that whole accusation came from Sweet Baby Inc. Shocker. Usually anything that comes from them is usually, again, a derailment tactic in order to bring people back into their area of this nonsense instead of actually having a real defense or a real argument. It's all about the racist bigotry agenda, guys. Not that the game might actually potentially be a little bit bad and in poor taste. No, it's everybody else that's the problem.
It reminds me of the George Carlin, it's all a big club and you're not in it. Man, that's crazy, isn't it?
And they say Hashimoto told the New York Times, quote, "It was people in the West who were upset with seeing Yasuke as a samurai."
Right.
Small added. Small, for those that don't know, is the journalist behind said New York Times article.
Look, I'll be honest, there probably were a bunch of fucking weirdos that were genuinely upset that they chose Yasuke as the samurai. But most sane people don't genuinely give a fuck about this. What people care about, and I've already said it, is the fact that the narrative itself is being so pushed by these weirdos in the development industry that it's like they're using Yasuke as a token. They're not trying to design a good game. They're trying to design political propaganda in order to force their worldviews, and people don't like having that shit forced on them, especially when they're trying to be entertained by something. At the end of the day, when you come home from work dealing with this shit all day long, do you really want to have to deal with it in the privacy of your own home too? When you're just trying to relax and play a fucking game or watch a TV show, now you gotta deal with these weirdos in your entertainment too? Fuck, like, is the only way to escape all this nonsense to just go in the woods? Christ. How long until they eventually get out there too and start harassing us with their worldviews?
Yes.
They say, Small added that Hashimoto explained, quote, that many of the negative online comments written in Japanese appear to have been roughly translated from English. The narrative...
And you know why you're getting negativity now instead of constructive criticism? Is you told everybody that they can't have constructive criticism, so at this point everybody's just like, okay, well, fuck you too then. Tell me what to do, tell me how to live my life. I tried to give you constructive criticism to help improve the game because I'm sure most people genuinely want the game to be good, because nobody wants to see a game be bad. We want good games. But since you won't let us have an opinion on it at all, and then you get shit like what happened to Concord because no one's allowed to speak up against it, what you have is a colossal money dip and a bad product because you've decided that you're better than everybody else and that only your opinion matters, and anybody else that disagrees with you is a racist bigot. So now you're just going to get personal attacks instead of actual criticism. You know, you basically signed this up for yourself. This is all consequences to your own actions. And then again, their next response is to attack back, which is fair. I mean, now we're just having a back and forth, and the game's still going to be bad. Nobody's going to win, and again, hundreds of millions of dollars are just going to get lit up in the air.
And so this is again, if you look again, many of the negative comments, which is true, but is many most? Is many 20%? I would say 20% of something is very many of them. Like 1 out of 5 is huge. Online comments written in Japanese appear to have been roughly translated from English. And also, this is only in the context of one video that's being used as a sample. And the sample is being...
Well, and I imagine also people did the same thing for good comments. Like, people do this weird tactical bullshit all the time. This isn't new. And it's weird that this is their whole argument. This is the best they could come up with? Good
used
grief.
From the Ubisoft Japan video. Whereas there were other people with Japanese communities that talked about it that transcended that and also other videos about it that were universally negative. So it's, again, more misinformation and more misleading of the reader.
Tactic
The
misdirections,
narrative
yeah.
that Hashimoto, Small, and Ubisoft were trying to spin was outrageous to begin with, given that Small had written just 2 paragraphs ahead of his citation of Hashimoto that Ubisoft attempted to assume concerns about the game's authenticity, apologizing in a lengthy statement for promotional materials that it said had bothered some Japanese audiences.
Attempted to assuage concerns about a game's authenticity. So,
I don't think people generally care that much about the game's authenticity. Again, it goes back to what they're trying to push. It all goes back to, like, nobody cares how authentic you are when all you're trying to do is dictate people's lives. Nobody wants to be told what to fucking do. Especially when your job is to create code that goes on my screen. Who the fuck are you?
yes, very clear. It is very clear that Ubisoft thought this was a problem, and if Ubisoft actually thought that the only people that were unhappy were racist Westerners that don't like black people, they wouldn't have posted a message in Japanese to their Japanese audience apologizing to them directly.
Mm-hmm.
So even Ubisoft doesn't believe this.
Yeah, even Ubisoft doesn't believe the narrative that they're twisting right now. What you're seeing is a bunch of assholes who are trying to find any straw man argument they can find to try to attack the people that are criticizing their behavior.
Because if they did, they wouldn't have posted a Japanese apology. And this is, again, it's the problem. This is what happens when you use logic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people tried logic, didn't work. So now, fuck the logic. Now you're just gonna get a bunch of assholes that are telling you straight up, fuck you. You don't want to listen to reason? Well, guess what? There's no more reasoning anymore. Now everybody's just fighting.
This type of thinking immediately falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
Another contradiction there. Even before this, Small noted, the inclusion of Yasuke was the primary complaint, but observers also pointed to the presence of Chinese architecture and period inappropriate flags. The controversy became so heated that a small right-wing political party in Japan formally asked the government to comment on what...
Oh yeah, I guess there was a couple, like, religious icons that they put in the game that they technically weren't really supposed to. I don't really see this as a big deal. Like, they can just take it out if it's that big of a fucking deal. It's a little cringe, but at the end of the day, like, it's such a minor detail.
What is considered historical inaccuracies.
So, again, so you see a small right-wing party, and this is like any time that I see... This is like just a, like, there are words, let me actually think about this. There's a lot of extra ones there. Let me go ahead and just skip all those. And, oh yeah, there's the Sony thing. I remember that. Yeah, that was my prediction. Yeah, I have a lot of these. Okay, let's have another one. Words that when I read them, I realize I am reading propaganda. So.
Oh, you mean like
right,
buzzwords? Yeah, buzzwords.
Alt right.
Cis. Het.
Believed by some to be. Right wing, yeah.
That's another thing. Like, these groups of people have come up with all these weird words to call people that disagree with them. It's just... It's so intellectually ridiculous, dumb. Like, you can't even call people exactly what they are anymore. You have to come up with new words. Yeah, but that's a completely different conversation.
I mean, just all variants of that, basically.
Buzzwords,
Communist.
basically. Yeah. And anytime I see words like this in someone's comment or they say it during a conversation, I automatically know exactly what kind of mentally ill person I'm dealing with. And I automatically throw out anything you say. Because All you're trying to do is use buzzwords in order to promote your worldview, and you clearly have no interest in actually having an adult conversation about anything. All you want to do is spread your nonsense.
Socialism. Nazi. Conspiracy theory.
They love the Nazi word. It's almost like
woke.
projection.
DEI. Let's start with this. Any time that I read one of these words, I instantly put my guard up.
Yeah, because most of the people that use these words are just shit-talking retards. And that's just a fact. Like, most of the time when you're dealing with somebody in the comments or, like, having a conversation with somebody and they use words like this, 90% of the time, they're just shit-talking retards.
These are some of the most misused words
100%
right now in discourse.
Yeah.
Anytime that I see any of these words used for any reason, I am immediately on guard. Why not left? Well, that's the communist.
And again, if I see shit like this coming from a shit-talking retard, I'm just going to throw out everything you say because nothing you say is important. I'm not going to deal with a mentally unhinged psychopath that all they want to do is use the discourse and fucking words like this to stir the fucking pot. If you have nothing valuable to add, do everybody a favor and just keep it to yourself.
In socialism. The difference is like, actually, you spell fascism. I know that's not how to spell it, but maybe it is. Anyway, yeah, fascism is another one, right? Yeah, they're basically buzzwords. It is. That's a shock.
Buzzwords, yep, that's what
yeah.
I said.
What's DEI? Diversity, inclusion, and diversity, equity, inclusion. It's like a big, what do you call it? It's a big umbrella term. And so incels, yeah, I could add
Oh yeah,
more
they love the
listed as well,
incel
but,
word.
like, the point that I'm making here is this.
That's another one that people misuse a lot. Like, if you disagree with somebody, you're an incel, or you're harassing them, or, you know, even if you don't even insult them in your disagreement, you're just a fucking incel. It's just like, you use words like this so often that it completely removes the power from them, and they just become useless buzzwords.
It's that when I read these words, I automatically assume that the person is trying to mislead me or make me think something by proxy.
Yep.
So a right-wing
shit-talking
political
retard.
group, they are trying to make you think by proxy that they're racist. And this is what a lot of people do. And I actually really like reading articles like this, and I like talking about this, because I think that there's not enough people that are dissecting this language and showing it for how misleading and manipulative it really is. We have a huge problem with, like, language manipulation. And again, the fact that many people...
We have a huge issue with manipulation in general. Like, this has been a problem for fucking years, of these weirdos trying to dictate social norms by manipulating people's emotions. These people do not have your best self-interest. They have their own. And they're also the same people that won't even act on their own virtues that they signal. All they want to do is pad their egos.
Are functionally illiterate, or at least they lack the critical thinking to...
And most of them are
evaluate
generally
things that
just shit-talking
written.
retards.
That this goes by, this goes over so many people's heads. But you're seeing this happen. It will only get worse. It will. And that's why
and this is why people are calling them out for it, because it's just going to keep getting worse.
Small right-wing, and also small, right, which is true. This is all true. And the problem is that it is framed in a way that implies something that's inaccurate. Formally ask the government to comment on what it considered historical inaccuracies. This is not a question, by the way. What it considered. So basically what it's doing here is that it's taking the presence of Chinese architecture it's attributing it to a source that is not to be believed, and then it's using the fact that the source is considering it as a way to invalidate what the consideration was used as.
Yeah.
Do you see how this happens?
Oh, shit.
It's a framing device.
Yeah, so if you ask a question like this, it's not what is the problem, it's what do you consider the problem. And it's a way for people to ask questions like this in order to derail again. Well, you only consider it. It's not what's actually happening. What the hell's going on with my connection here? Ah, fuck. Jesus. But anyway, it's intellectually misleading, basically. Are we good? Might have to come back. I think I'm losing connection here. Jesus. What the fuck is going on with my internet? Am I getting DDoSed because I'm disagreeing?
Up a weak statement. Yes.
Anyway.
And again, I love reading this stuff. I love doing it because it's like I fucking hate it. I hate the manipulation. I hate the lies. It's so annoying.
So exhausting.
It's the spin.
And I think what you're seeing now is a collective of people that are all getting exhausted with this. They were on your side for a bit, but now that you've been constantly making yourselves look more and more ridiculous, people are losing interest in supporting your cause. Because the cause has turned from inclusivity to literal attacking people because they don't purchase your game. Oh my god. I'm getting a little sick of my internet connection here. But point is, when you take a cause that people have been fighting for decades and you use it to push a narrative, people are eventually going to catch on to that. You don't give a fuck about trans rights. You just want to use it to pad your ego and to push whatever narrative you need, and that's why every time you do this stuff, you're stereotyping and not actually accurate in what you're producing. Okay, I guess I'll stand here. But my point is, oh, fucking brain, hang on. Point is, these people have been using other groups who've been oppressed as a delivery service for their propaganda for so long that most average and sane people have caught on and are tired of it, and we want it to stop. Your voices have been heard, and people are sick of it. You want to personally attack people? Well, now you've started a fucking war. Or not a war, but you know, you threw sand and now it's being thrown back at you. And you're acting surprised. Don't throw rocks when you live in a glass house. Don't start a fight that you're not willing to finish. You know what I mean? And this whole idea of demonizing your audience until they buy into your propaganda is so fucking weird. They're just not going to buy your shit. And you're going to have more and more people that aren't buying it. The only reason people bought certain games is because 2 million out of the 22 million people that are going to buy your game are the only people that give a shit about this stuff. The other 20 million people are just average people who don't even pay attention to a lot of this crap that's going on. And if they buy your game, that means your game was actually good. If they don't, that means your game sucks. Because majority of normal sane people aren't talking about this. You think Jim from accounting gives a flying fuck about what you think about anything? No. He sees a good game, he's going to buy the game, and he's going to play it. The rest of this bullshit is not impactful on his life at all.
Yeah.
If it was just Western people, why was a Japanese political party...
And this is the entire argument that people are trying to get into these people's thick skulls. It's not about DI or any of this stuff. It's about the fact that your games are bad, and you're blaming the audience for your bad games. and you're pushing your worldviews into everybody's entertainment when nobody fucking asked. It's like going to a bar and telling people that drinking is unhealthy. You're not wrong, but nobody gives a fuck. There's a time and place for everything.
Requesting an investigation into the game, and why did Ubisoft issue a so-called apology to Japanese gamers?
Great question.
Nevertheless, it's been discovered that Hashimoto...
Yeah, they even made an apology, which means they are admitting to some form of guilt. But now they're coming around and they're deciding, well, we're not guilty anymore, and it's everybody else's fault, and it's the right-wing agenda. Like, what the fuck is this shit, man?
...was actually an employee of Sweet Baby Inc. from February 2020 to April...
It's like when you're having an argument with a toddler, all they're gonna do is fucking kick and scream, shit in their hand, and throw it at you and call you the retard.
2023, as noted by his own LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Not only is Hashimoto a former employee of Sweet Baby Inc., but he's an activist journalist whose articles are featured at Polygon, Siliconera, Vim, and multiple outlets owned by Gamers Group.
What the fuck's going on
Mark
with WoW
Kern,
right
aka
now?
Grumps, shared one article Hashimoto wrote on Medium where he
shit.
criticized Animal Crossing New Horizons,
Well,
acknowledging Japan's history of colonial rule. You gotta be kidding me. This dude actually got pressed by Animal Crossing, saying it's like a colonizer game.
okay, I don't know what's going on with WoW here. We're gonna just nope out of this shit for now. And we'll just actually watch the video, I guess. Blizzard seems to be having some issues.
By the way,
I know it's an Asmon
we
video.
didn't do colonization.
I do like a lot of what he says sometimes. I don't agree with everything, but on most parts of this kind of stuff, I do.
We did conquering. We came to America and we killed everybody here and we took their stuff. The whole idea that it's colonialism, this is a euphemism. And Japan did the same thing. Everywhere did this.
Yeah, most of the world that you live in, not just Europeans colonize the world. Most countries that are living in their certain country of origin are probably not originally from that country. Our fucking world is built on the backs of blood and a lot of bad shit. Using this as an argument is ridiculous.
Genghis Khan did this. Colonialism is a euphemism for conquering. And that's what really happened.
Why are these people always so friggin' lame and weird? Earlier this year, Hashimoto also wrote an article at Vim
That's a great
titled,
question.
How Gay Can You Be in Dragon's Dogma 2? An Investigation. What the frick? What am I reading here, man? It is unsurprising that Ubisoft and the New York Times...
you can have sex with a cat. I mean, I feel like that's pretty good.
That's pretty, yeah. It goes pretty deep. You can get fucked in the ass by a bear, so if that's your thing, well, that's your game. Have fun.
That seems like, I mean, if you can do that, you do whatever the hell you want. Yes, you can. You go to the brothel. I did it.
There's also another game that you can have sex with male characters. Mass Effect. Dragon Age. There's a lot of games out there that if you just took some time to look for, you would find what you're looking for.
Did it on accident. It was on. I didn't mean to do it. Like I didn't try to. I didn't know it was gonna happen. I didn't know basically. Like I was like I don't know why. Like it was just like I don't know what.
And again, I'm not complaining about that. I think, fuck it, put it in the game. If people want to have it, they can fucking do it. Who gives a shit? You want to get fucked in the ass by a bear? I think you should be allowed to do that in a video game. Just like we should be allowed to have our stuff too. But instead, when we criticize certain things, well, now it's a personal attack.
I mean, yeah, I don't even.
This is the problem.
Hashimoto, as a so-called expert to attack gamers.
Right.
It's an old play the Access Media uses. For example,
Yeah, this is exactly right. They're using this person, and again, like, you know, they have a Japanese last name, and so they're going to be seen as a person who is looking at it from the perspective of Japan, and that's, again, more types.
Yeah, it's the, I'm not racist, I have a Japanese friend.
of it is an appeal to authority. It's like a soft appeal to authority. And so it's no longer, and it's again, like, what is it at the baseline? You know what it is at the baseline? Identity politics. It's we are going to use this person's identity that's going to passively cause you to have an implicit level of trust and authenticity in their words for us to push an agenda that's misleading.
On Prime previously used as play, and the lead up to release The Lord of the Rings of Power Season 1.
Yeah.
However, instead of using the New York Times, Amazon went to Vanity Fair and writers Anthony Breznican and Joanna Robinson. That duo then launched their attack on gamers, saying, when Amazon released photos of its multicultural cast, even...
Again, why attack your audience? This has never worked, and it's just making things worse. If you're going to attack the audience that you want to attract to your show, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to be like, oh, well, I guess you're right. I'm just a piece of shit. Here's my money. No. They're going to give you the middle finger and tell you to go fuck yourself, and they're not going to watch your show or play your game, and you're not going to sell the product. This is so weird, man. Why can't these companies just own up to their fucking mediocre products and just write it off as a loss and be like, okay, maybe this one didn't hit, let's try again? No, instead, you're going to have everybody blame the audience because they didn't like the garbage you were trying to feed them. Like, what are you talking about?
even without character names or plot details.
And then you got to get entire organizations like this together to organize a controlled attack on your audience. Like, holy fuck, dude, it's so pathetic. It's like the equivalent of when you get into a fist fight at school and then that kid goes home and his big brother gets 20 of his friends together to come beat you up. Meanwhile, you're in grade 5 and all you did was get into a little beef with another grade 5 kid, and he's got to get his teenage brother and 20 other people to come beat your ass to prove a point. Well, who's really the fucking loser here? Both people are. I mean, fuck, that sucks. Now I got my ass beat. But it's like, fuck, man, you needed 20 people almost twice my age to come up and prove a point? What's the point? That you're a fucking pussy? Fuck off.
Studio endured a reflexive attack from trolls, the anonymous online kind.
Mm-hmm.
Then,
oh, yes. That's another favorite word of these people. Any kind of criticism or disagreement or, I don't like this. It's trolling. Because at the end of the day, they're always right.
And they cited a woman.
And again, right, it's like people that don't want a, obviously, Lord of the Rings is written as a medieval European fantasy. Who do you think was in medieval Europe? Pretty much all white people.
Duh. Shocker.
What are we even talking about? Yeah, it was all white people. Like, and I haven't seen Shogun, but I have a feeling that almost everybody there is probably going to be Japanese, right? Yeah. I wonder why. There's one white guy? Yeah, sure.
Named Maria Rios Maldonado, who they described as a Tolkien scholar. However, she is anything but. Rather, she was a PhD student at the University of Glasgow who is interested in ethics, feminist theory, and encountering the others in Tolkien's works. It's really funny how ethics for these people really just means bootlicking massive corporations.
It's not about bootlicking a massive corporation. It's about pushing an agenda that they believe in.
Yeah.
What is the other?
As I've said before, the whole point of everything that is happening is because they just want to push their worldviews. That has nothing to do with anything else. All of the other stuff is them twisting the argument, derailing it. At the end of the day, the number one thing is virtue signaling. Sending a message. That's what people are getting sick and tired of. We are sick and tired of being force-fed worldviews and being told that if we have any disagreement of it, that we are the villains. You know who had this same kind of mentality? Fucking Hitler. What, are you going to fucking load us all up on trains and send us to work camps? I know there's probably a lot of them that would love to do that.
in Tolkien's works. I'm assuming that this is probably how the Haradrim and the other types of like people from the East are perceived as being other races of people. That's probably the orc family. No, I think they're probably... Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen.
To happen to be the Equality and Diversity Officer for the University of Glasgow Center for Fantasy and the Fantastic. I think I just lost IQ reading that right there. Anyways, continuing. Next, Vanity Fair used Maldonado to attack Tolkien fans and imply they're all racist for simply wanting a lore act.
Yeah, this was another example I used earlier. So, that Tolkien game, the Harry Potter one, that sold 22 million copies, only about 2 million of those people are doing what we're doing right now, having a conversation about it. The other 20 million people who bought the game were probably just average dudes like George in construction. He's like, fuck Harry Potter, man, I want to play that. Most people don't give a fuck about all the political bullshit that's attached to what's going on. They just want a good game so they can have good time, you know? And you know what happened is that Harry Potter game was just an actually good game. Word of mouth travels. People bought the game. They played the game. If a product is good, it will stand on its own. Nobody gives a fuck about your virtues.
Accurate adaptation. She questioned, obviously there was going to be push and backlash, but the question is...
Like, yes, it sucks that Tolkien doesn't like trans people. Oh no, the fucking old white lady has a disagreement on something that's new. Shocker. Like, what are we talking about here?
From whom? Who are these people that feel so threatened or disgusted by the idea that an elf is black or Latino or Asian?
And this is one thing that a lot of people do, is they used words like threatened or disgusted in order to emotionally elevate the conversation.
Yeah, 100
to
fucking
make their
percent.
opponents feel and seem less reasonable.
Yeah, it's always emotionally driven too. It's never logical. It's just buzzwords, emotion. And this is why y'all losing money. This is why y'all losing your jobs. This is why the market is correcting itself.
This is a very common debate strategy where you're not actually appealing to an argument. You're not creating any sort of a compelling agreement or like a compelling narrative. You're just trying to make the other person look ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's what what happens extremely commonly. It's ad hominem.
It's not about having a conversation. It's about making your opponent look like a piece of shit.
I'm not really sure. I'd have to really think about that. But like, what I'm saying is that they over-exaggerate it to make the people that are disagreeing seem unreasonable and to make themselves seem better. So anytime you see somebody that elevates language, like to threatened or disgusted or something like that, you should automatically assume that this person is trying to mislead you.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad.
And you should automatically assume that this person is not mentally stable.
It's bad faith description.
The tactic did not end up working for Rings of Power, as The Hollywood Reporter's Kim Masters reported in April 2023 that 63% of individuals who watched part of the show's premiere back in 2022 did not complete the show. She wrote, while Amazon, like...
Again, a bad product will fail. People gave it a chance. People didn't like it. Some people liked it. You're always going to have people who like things, but if you're trying to make money, you need to be able to, maybe not demonize your audience and tell them that they're racist, bigot assholes just because they didn't like your particular show. Because what's going to happen is your show's going to fail, and it's not going to get another season, and the people that actually like the show are going to be disappointed.
Like other streamers, provides only limited
I don't know
data
what the
and
percentage
internally held
normally is.
information even more closely than usual in the series. Sources confirmed that The Rings of Power had a 37% domestic completion rate. For those outside the U.S., the completion rate was higher. Masters shared overseas.
Very hard for me to say, is that good or bad?
It reached 45%. A 50% completion.
Apparently it was
rate would be
bad enough
solid,
that they
but
weren't
not
making a second
spectacular,
season.
according to insiders. And so this sort of tactic is also unlikely to work with Assassin's Creed Shadows, as Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot already revealed that the game is unlikely to be the best.
And it's too bad because I kind of thought when I first looked at this game and I didn't see all this nonsense that was floating around the game, I thought it looked cool. I was like, fuck yeah, an Assassin's Creed game in Japan. The characters actually look kind of cool. And then now I'm having a bad taste in my mouth because of what the actual company is doing, Ubisoft, and essentially demonizing and bullying people into following their agenda to buy the game. If I didn't know about any of this shit that was going on, like if I didn't follow this, I didn't hear about this, I probably would have just bought the fucking game and played it. And if I didn't like it because the game was bad, then I would have just moved on with my life. But the problem is now you have a bunch of these weirdos who want to attack and essentially, well, not attack, but I don't like using the word attack. They're not attacking. They're using buzzwords and they're trying to guilt trip people into buying their shit. And it's exhausting. At the very least, it's exhausting. I'm not really afraid of a bunch of weirdos sending me death threats on the internet. They're not going to actually fulfill those threats. It's not a problem. It's unimportant. This is the problem. You could have just released the game and not harassed people. And I guarantee you it probably would have sold better. The same thing with Concord. It was all just the developers and the company just pushing. Oh, look at us. We're so inclusive. Look at this. This is how you should live your life. You should change your morals based on what I'm saying. Do what I do. Do as I say. It's just like, stop. Things will sell better if you just get your fist out of my ass and stop telling me what to fucking do. I will decide, based on the product itself, if it's something I want to buy. I don't need you telling me that the game is important because your worldviews are in it. I don't care. Nobody does. And the people that do care aren't going to buy the game anyways, because at the end of the day, most people just want to have an opinion on it.
Best-selling Assassin's Creed game of all time.
I could assume that.
Barclays' Nick Dempsey asked him, when you talk about it being the most ambitious, are you hoping for it to be the best-selling Assassin's Creed game? To which Guillemot replied, at this time we can say we expect Assassin's Creed to be among the high sellers of the company so far. Okay,
yeah,
so...
I mean, like...
Perhaps. But you did lose a lot of your audience, and you're probably going to lose more by sending Sweet Baby Inc. after people. It's so weird. It's a strange tactic.
Basically, no. We don't think it's going to be a bestseller, but we think it'll do well. Yeah, sure.
In other words, he dodged the question. The
Yeah.
game's pre-orders do not look good either. Craig Skidstamus, aka Stuttering Craig, who owns and hosts the Side Scrollers podcast, shared that a retail insider informed him that the game is selling less than one copy per store. He says, my insider told me that as of this morning that their nationwide big box chain, Assassin's Creed Shadows, has less than 800 pre-orders combined for...
Well, again, and I'll repeat what I said before. What you're seeing is the consequences of how you treat your audience. If you just released the game and didn't have all this weird identity politics bullshit floating around it, you probably would have sold more copies. Because as I said, at a first glance, it looked like a cool game. I would have played it. But now I'm not going to because there's all this baggage that comes with it now, and I don't fucking... It's not worth my money now.
Xbox and PlayStation 5 company-wide.
I don't believe that. I think that's too low. The reason why I don't believe that is because at the Japanese PlayStation store, the copy for like Assassin's Creed was like number 1 and number 3 for the deluxe edition and the base edition. So, like, if Japan probably doesn't like this more than we do because they feel like it's an assault on their culture, and they're topping the charts with that, that's only physical. Yeah, I don't think this is. I don't think that you can really base anything off of this.
No, and we're gonna have to do is wait and see how it does. And hey, I hope it does well. Again, like I have no ill will towards these companies. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to act like this, don't be surprised when people don't buy your product. The whole issue here is the fact that people are doing this and getting upset and trying to fish for sympathy when things blow up in their face. Well, you fucked around and you found out. I can't have sympathy for somebody that does this kind of stuff and then it doesn't work out for them.
You have no frame of reference.
They have over 900
right?
stores.
How many people pre-ordered Dragon's Dogma 2? How many people pre-ordered Star Wars Outlaws? How many people pre-ordered... Like, you present a number with no context, and it's like, wow, whoa, what? Like, what does that mean?
Less than one pre-order per store. Yikes. On the PlayStation Store, the Ultimate Edition of the game, which costs around $130, is ranked 16th behind New World Eternum, Dragon Age the Veilguard, Silent Hill 2, Mortal Kombat 1 Chaos Reigns Expansion, and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero.
Well, of course it is, because it's been out for a long time. But when it first came out, it was highly ranked on the PlayStation Store.
Which, by the way, is a game that I'm excited for.
Well, and again, like, these are single player. Most of these are like single player games. Like, you get your entertainment out of it, and then you stop playing it. Like, that's just obvious, right? Like, these were probably good games. I never played any of them. But after you finish the storyline, you might play it once or twice more, and then you move on to the next thing. That's just how most of these games work, and that's how games should. That's how they should be. Not everything needs to be a live service.
For Budokai Tenkaichi.
That's like if you're reading a book and you're paying more money to have more content added to the book. No, I'm just going to buy the next book. Like...
Tenkaichi 3 was one of the best fighting games of all time. As for Assassin's Creed Shadows, the base game is even further down the list in the 21st place behind Disney epic Mickey Rebrushed, Throne and Liberty, and Sonic X Shadow Generations. The Gold Edition sits on the second page in 30th place. And
that's also another reason why it would not be successful. It's because the instances of it are being split. So you can see Dragon Age is here and also here. So if there's two separate placings and one of them has 60 and the other one has 40, you could easily see that, and this seems to be the case with New World Eternum, Assassin's Creed Shadows, but games that only have one release copy are going to have a natural advantage inside of this algorithm because they're not pulling and dividing the sales between two different types of copies of the game. So like, and this is, it's very important.
I mean, fair enough.
Let's just try to look at this fairly. That's all I want to do.
Saying, what do you make of this revelation that Hashimoto was a former Sweet Baby Inc. employee? Yeah, like I said in the very intro, I just can't believe that Ubisoft is doing what they do and they think this is like the right move. They're one of the largest gaming companies in the entire world, and they could just put that power and money towards making good games, but apparently that's too much to ask. Instead,
No, because, like, I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but the fact is, it's not about making quality entertainment. It's about sending a message nowadays. It's all about pushing their worldviews. And eventually, and you're already seeing it happen, these companies are going to start losing money, and they're going to see that there's no more profit in virtue signaling, and all these people are going to be let go. Or told, you need to stop. Stop demonizing the customers and do your fucking job, which is generating code on my screen. Your job is not to tell people how to live their lives. If you want to have opinions on stuff like that, do it on your own platforms, do it on your own time, but you're getting paid to do a certain job. I don't go out and do my job and tell everybody, oh, well, this is how you should live your life. I'm a fucking Boilermaker, dude. You think that would go over well? Fuck no. I would fucking laugh right off the fucking site, dude. Do your fucking job, and if you want to have opinions on shit like this, do it on your own time. It's pretty simple.
You see them come up with all kinds of excuses and contradictions, bunch of bots all over the internet attempting to defend them. We see it all over Twitter and YouTube comments, for example. Heck, I made a video a few days ago where I talked about how a video that I made talking about the terrible financial situation for Ubisoft had gotten an influx of bot comments. They were like spamming the comment section with periods. And then in between the...
Oh yeah, and I've been getting a few of those too. Not on YouTube. I think I got a couple yesterday. But on my other social media is like you can tell when it's a bot comment. It's just devoid of any human thought, and it's just like, okay, sure. So now they're sending bots in to do their dirty work. They can't even harass us themselves personally. Man, that's kind of lame.
The period spam, there were other bots leaving comments attempting to defend Ubisoft and Star Wars Outlaws, but their comments sounded so nonsensical. And now it looks like the New York Times is collaborating with some ex-Sweet Baby Inc. employee to defend Ubisoft as well. This whole situation...
Here's one thing you have to keep in mind, is that every single piece of mainstream media that's like part of this like kind of cabal, every single one of them is against you. They all have the exact same opinion about this, and they will work in concert to destroy your reputation and to make your position seem unreasonable and bad.
Bring it on.
It's the same reason why, like, for example, like Stellar Blade comes out, or Hogwarts Legacy comes out, or what was the recent one? Pow World comes out, or I think there's a couple other games that were like very big controversy games. Space Marine 2 comes out. Every single one of them has the same cookie cutter opinion, and they have the exact same agenda. You're seeing a diversity of company names, but you're not seeing any diversity of thought.
Yeah.
All of these mainstream publications have the exact same agenda, and they work together to push that agenda. Like, it's unironically a matrix.
They're all
you have to be blind not to
colluding.
see this.
And you know what? If they want to do this, that's their right. They want to collude and just make entertainment as a delivery service for their worldviews. They have that right to. I'm not going to argue that. But what I am going to argue is don't be surprised when no one gives you any money or buys any of this, because you have a right to do whatever you want with your IPs and your entertainment and what you want to create and sell to the world, just like we have a complete right to criticize and not purchase it. Tired of this fucking one-lane road here where these developers and these companies think that just because they seem to feel like they have the moral high ground, that they have a right to our money. No. Your job is to create entertainment. If you can't do that, then you're not getting paid. Simple as that.
Situation is just so bizarre. On top of all that, there was the old news where they came out with Skull and Bones trying to say this is like a quadruple A game, everybody. And then the whole like gamers need to get...
That was fucking hilarious. I was like, what the fuck is quadruple A? Like, we're trying to make a new genre now of like, we're adding an extra letter and that's gonna make the game better. Okay. Sure.
Comfortable not owning their games. It's like the majority...
I think, again, that comment was out of context. There's a lot of things that we can shit on Ubisoft for. That isn't one of them.
It's still a little funny.
of stuff that comes out from this company is just like the worst statements and the worst actions they could possibly do. It's like they have an option. You want to do something good, or you want to do like the worst option possible, and they always pick the worst option. And to end with some comedy, let's go back to that whole Hashimoto Animal Crossing thing. Because Hashimoto made this tweet, says, "Hi, I wrote about Animal Crossing New Horizons and why acknowledging Japan's history of colonial rule is important to the discussion." No, it's literally not at all. It's a freaking...
Wait. Okay, let him cook.
Nobody cares. Nobody thinks it's important at all.
No, this is weird.
That's what.
This is just another weirdo who's just trying to get clicks and stuff by using buzzwords and just has a strange opinion on something. Like, this is unimportant.
What I think people need to realize is that just because you say something is important doesn't make it important.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't cover everything, but feel free to read New Horizons and Japanese colonialism. Oh God.
Animal Crossing game. If you're taking it that seriously and getting all mad at it, something's seriously wrong with this person. They end by saying, obviously it doesn't cover everything, but feel free to read.
Well, it's the old adage of when you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. These are people that view everything through this lens. So as soon as they see something like Animal Crossing, they can't help themselves but to think the exact same thing.
And also, these people thrive on problems. If you solve their problems, then they have no reason to exist. So they have to keep coming up with problems. They need to fabricate issues in their head in order to give their existence relevancy. And that's another problem. Like this is ridiculous. And anybody with a sane mind can see that this person's just, they're reaching, really, really reaching for something to be upset about.
How do people get like this? I think that people get like this by... I don't know. It's probably really complicated. I don't really...
I'm going to have a hot take on this. You know why I think people get like this? It's because they live a privileged life in a privileged society. They get to live in a nice home. They grow up with a semi-easy life with, the basic, everybody goes through kind of stress. And then they realize that the rest of the world has to go through other problems, and then they get a sense of guilt. So now they got to victimize themselves in order to feel included with the rest of the world who didn't get to have the same privilege that they did, in order to cover up the guilt that's inside of them because they had a better shot at life than a lot of other people did. So they need to create problems in order to victimize themselves so that they don't feel like they're privileged. That's how I think a lot of people get like this. It's essentially just victimizing themselves and self-guilt.
I think that a very large component of it is actually guilt.
See? Told you.
It's a sense of guilt that they have, and then it's performative empathy in order to get positive attention. In general, I think that if you want to find out why somebody thinks something, figure out what they get out of it or how it benefits them, and then you can generally have the answer.
It's essentially about padding their ego. Again, virtue signaling weirdos who need to fabricate problems that don't exist in order to pad their ego so that they can get that sense of inclusion, right? That sense of belonging, the sense that, their life has more meaning than it really does. Instead of just, living your life like a normal person, not fabricating problems, and maybe trying to do something with your life that doesn't involve mental gymnastics, that Animal Crossing is about colonialism. It's insane. I'm sorry you feel guilty about the privilege that you've had in society. Yeah, 100%. We do. If you live in a civilized country, you are above millions and millions of other people who did not get the same shot. You were lucky to live in a civilized, privileged country. But take your self-guilt somewhere else and maybe use that energy on something more important than this. This is just sad.
The headline: Animal Crossing, New Horizons, and Japanese colonialism. Weirdo. Anyways,
Yeah.
I will leave it there. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed my coverage on this topic, please consider liking and or subscribing. Appreciate ya. See ya in the comments and in the next one.
Well, there it
Today
is.
we talk
Just
about
a second. Just a second.
Well, apparently...
I completely agree with what he's saying.
Yeah.
And I just hope you guys can realize and read, and hopefully try to read between the lines and look at the way that something is being implied, because this is one thing that I think really matters a lot, is that when you realize that somebody is trying to make you think a certain thing, you have to have your guard up. And I think it's also really important when we're talking about things that we agree with too.
Yeah, and that goes both ways. If you don't agree with what I'm saying or what he's saying, 100% you're allowed to think that way. No one's arguing that. Because sane people, unlike the people that are telling us that we can't have any kind of constructive criticism or disagreement, I 100% think that you should. You should think for yourself. You should be allowed to say that I'm a fucking asshole. Maybe I am. I don't know. But I do bring up some points that are 100% true. And if you don't agree with that, that's 100% your right. And you're free to tell me that. I'm not going to be like these crazy weirdos who tell you how to think. I'm just stating what I see in front of me, what is annoying, and why I genuinely believe that most of these games are failing and why no one is buying it. That's all. At the end of the day, you're the one who controls your wallet. You're the one who makes the choice to purchase something or not to purchase something. And if what that thing is doesn't go with your moral worldviews, you're more than allowed to not buy it. What the rest of us are trying to say is that these companies like Sweet Baby Inc. and Ubisoft, who are trying to do the opposite and tell us exactly how to live our lives and exactly how to spend our money, you are wrong. You are trying to dictate social norms in a way that a lot of people don't agree with. And the fact of the matter is, it's damaging. You're losing money. We're losing out on quality entertainment. Nobody's winning. It's a constant back and forth of a fucking dick whipping contest that needs to stop. And if you're not willing to change your actions and to change your behaviors, well, I hate to break it to you, but the free market is going to correct you. You're going to lose your money. People are not going to buy your stuff because people are sick and tired of having worldviews shoved down their throat. And I'm perfectly fine here playing the games that I own until that market is corrected and people start creating content and entertainment again that is actually designed to be entertaining and not as some weird identity politics propaganda bullshit that nobody wants to deal with. And anyway, those are my thoughts today on the things that have been going on. Ubisoft, Sweet Baby Inc. If this is your next strategy, good luck. Good luck demonizing your audience. Good luck telling everybody that they're pieces of shit. I'll be here when your game flops, and to use your poor behavior as another example as to why this is just a bad thing to do. And sorry, Asmon, I stole your video today. I know you probably don't give a shit because I'm just a random nobody with an opinion. But hey, that is my thoughts. Bye.